Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Historical Men in Crisis. In this special episode of Historical Men in Crisis, I am going to be talking about legendary NFL player and defendant in the trial of the 20th century, O.J. Simpson. Now, O.J. Simpson was born in 1947 to two middle-class black parents, Eunice Simpson, who was a hospital administrator, and Jimmy Lee Simpson, who was an employee of the Federal Reserve Bank and was a one-time bank custodian. And even though Orenthal James Simpson was born to two middle-class black parents, he wound up on the road to becoming a man in crisis when his family wound up divorcing in 1952, possibly because Eunice Simpson found out that her husband was gay and was a drag queen in San Francisco. Now, Orenthal James Simpson got his name from his grandparents, who came from Louisiana, and the name came from a French actor that her grandmother liked, and he was called O.J. from birth and didn't know that his name was Orenthal until he was in third grade. Now, O.J. Simpson, after his parents separated, wound up living in the projects with his single mother. And as he was living in the projects with his single mother, sadly, he didn't get any sort of male life skills or male survival skills from his father and had to learn about life in the streets. And as he was learning about life in the streets, he basically learned how to hustle by scalping tickets and collecting seat cushions at Kezar Stadium and organized dances and hiring a band and ballroom and charging admission, showing that he had some sort of entrepreneurial background, but this was not cultivated in a positive way because as O.J. Simpson was learning about life in the streets in the housing projects of the Portero Hill neighborhood, he joined a street gang, and as he joined a street gang called the Persian Warriors, he wound up getting arrested 3 times and was briefly incarcerated in the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center. Now, his girlfriend at the time, who became his future wife, Marguerite, said that O.J. Simpson was a really awful person then, and he was an awful person possibly because he had not been raised with any sort of actual male life skills or male survival skills to be able to develop his entrepreneurial talents that he had developed when he was younger. And he basically was on the road to possibly winding up in prison had he not had an intervention where he met legendary baseball star Willie Mays. And after meeting Willie Mays, he encouraged O.J. Simpson to avoid trouble. And this basically led to O.J. Simpson looking to turn around his life and looked to turn around his life at Galileo High School, where he played for the football team, the Galileo Lions. Now, as O.J. Simpson started playing for the Galileo Lions, he was showing his talents as a football player. Unfortunately, his grades were not very good, so he couldn't attract many college recruiters at the beginning of his career and was possibly thinking about pursuing a career in the military until one of his friends wound up getting injured in the Vietnam War. Now, O.J. wanted to stay out of the military, so he enrolled at the City College of San Francisco in 1965 and played football as a running back and defensive back, and was named to the junior college's team as a running back, where City College won the Prune Bowl. And this basically showed how talented O.J. Simpson was and allowed him to transfer to USC. And as he transferred to USC, he started to show his potential as a superstar player and had a great year playing for the USC Trojans in 1968, where he had gotten over 1,800 yards with 383 carries. Now, in 1967, he was a close runner-up for the Heisman Trophy, but in 1968, I believe he won the Heisman Trophy, and after winning the Heisman Trophy, he he basically started to show he was a star. Now, he was also a great track athlete as well, and this basically showed how much a great a talent he had. And OJ was, again, a brilliant player as related to football. He was an All-American when he won the Walter Camp Award, and he won lots of accolades and was seen as a very popular player, and basically was recruited in the draft for the AFL's Buffalo Bills after they had a horrible record, but they were able to get to draft O.J. Simpson, and O.J. Simpson basically became a superstar in football. And as he became a superstar in football, over the decade he played for the Buffalo, in the NFL, he played for the Buffalo Bills, and he played for the San Francisco 49ers, and as he played, he became one of the greatest running backs in the history of football. Now, as O.J. Simpson was one of the greatest running backs in football, like many beta males, he had great success on the gridiron. Unfortunately, like most beta males, he really didn't know how to put that together to become a leader as related to his personal life. And he didn't understand how to become a leader as related to his personal life, because the whole thing is he never had anybody to teach him how to navigate a course for his life. And as a baby boomer, he was really oftentimes spending most of his time looking to gain acceptance, because with many of the black baby boomers, they were looking for white validation and approval, and this proved to be the Achilles heel for O.J. Simpson. Even though he had great success, I mean, he was a very successful man, but sadly, he was looking to be accepted and approved by white people, and this was a problem for him, because as he became more popular, he stopped seeing himself as a black man and saw himself as just an ordinary man. But this really put him on the road to being a man in crisis, because it showed how he was looking to follow white people in order to get acceptance and wasn't looking to be his own man. Now, this was something that was appealing to the white supremacists as related to O.J. Simpson, and it was appealing to white people as related to O.J. Simpson because he was a guy who they could consider one of those guys who could transcend race, and to them, if he could transcend race, they could use him as a spokesperson to push their narratives. And O.J. Simpson became as he was playing football, became a popular spokesman for many companies like Hertz and Dingo Boots, and he also became quite popular to the point where they had Jimmy Walker on Good Times constantly mentioning his name because he was considered to be non-threatening. And as O.J. Simpson went on in the NFL and then into entertainment, he started he was able to transition from being a star on the football field to a star in commercials to a star in TV shows, and he made lots of appearances in TV shows like In the Heat of the Night and many other shows like First and 10, where he was a regular on that show. And as he was a regular on First and 10, there was a storyline going on that basically foreshadowed his future as he was looking to pursue a relationship with a white woman. And this whole being able to transcend race really put Orenthal James Simpson on the road to becoming a man in crisis, because as he was out and having the success in the world, he was looking at the world as related to having no color, and sadly this basically messed up his character because he had issues with his black wife Marguerite, because he had a wife Marguerite who was black, and he had two black children, Arnell and Jason. And as he had the two kids, Arnell and Jason, he had a third son who had been born and sadly passed away due to drowning in a pool, and this caused a rift between Orenthal and his wife, Marguerite, and this basically led to them divorcing. And after they divorced, O.J. Simpson looked to transcend race, and as he looked to transcend race and looked to fit into the world of white people, what he did was walk away from the black community and the base that he was a part of to be a part of a larger world. And as he looked to be a part of that world, he got involved with a waitress that he had met, Nicole Brown. Now, as he got involved with Nicole Brown, he then married Nicole Brown, and she became Nicole Brown Simpson. Unfortunately, their relationship did not be one that where they basically could have success the way he had with Marguerite. And this was possibly due to OJ and Nicole both being of two different races, with Nicole being a white woman and OJ being a black man. And he wasn't able to transcend race because Nicole possibly did not want to submit to the authority of OJ, and she didn't really want to fit into being a black man's wife. And this possibly led to OJ having a lot of friction with a wife who he thought would be far more submissive than a black woman would, and possibly thought that she would be able to work with him better. Unfortunately, they weren't able to work together, and as a result, Nicole alleges that OJ allegedly participated in domestic violence, and this is what she alleges happened between them that basically led to their marriage that started in 1984, where they had 2 kids together, Sydney and Justin, breaking up, and then this marriage breaking up in 1992. Now, once this marriage broke up, there were narratives being promoted about O.J. Simpson being participating in domestic violence, and that's another pattern, again, for beta males, because they do not know how to work in a relationship with women. And when I look at O.J.'s 2 marriages, they basically, one wound up falling apart because I guess he could not cope and help as related to grieving with his wife emotionally, because again, with a lot of beta males, they have a problem with being able to empathize with people and connect with them and see them as people, because a lot of these guys live in rose-colored realities, so it's hard for them to be able to connect with people and be able to empathize with them enough to care about things. And I guess that's what put some distance between him and his wife Marguerite that led to them divorcing. And when I look at his relationship with Nicole, the race issues basically started to be the thing that I think led to them breaking up, because OJ wanted to be the leader in the relationship, and possibly Nicole didn't want to follow his lead, because a lot of times white women don't want to submit to black men in a leadership role. And this possibly was the thing that led to him possibly having the frustration that led to the possible alleged domestic violence. I say possible because usually if a black man were to ever put a hand on a white woman, they would possibly throw him under the jailhouse regardless of his social status. But that's why I say alleged as related to that situation. Now, there were arrests as related to it, but there were never any sort of serious convictions. So I don't know what went on with OJ and Nicole. But when I look at this case, again, I think about it as she didn't want to submit to his leadership or his authority or see him as an authority figure, and that possibly led to the friction between them. And that possibly led to this friction, and Nicole basically being a person who wanted to run the streets basically made it a big problem for OJ. Now, in 1994, there was a great tragedy with Nicole Brown Simpson, who is now out here dating guys and hanging out with different guys who were possibly part of organized crime. I say possibly a part of organized crime because these were speculations made as related to Nicole Brown Simpson, and sadly she was found in front of her condominium, dead in front of the front of the door with Ron Goldman, who had came from the Mezzaluna restaurant to bring her back an item that she left at the restaurant, and both their bodies were found. And once their bodies were found, this is where O.J. Simpson went from being a man who had issues as a man in crisis to a man who would be in one of the most infamous situations in American history. Now, after Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman's bodies were found, Los Angeles prosecutor Marcia Clark and her team of Chris Darden and many others, they were looking to find a suspect in the case of the death of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, as this case started to become very popular in the media. Many tabloid shows and talk shows talked about this whole murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman in 1994. And as they talked about the murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, they all looked to point a finger at O.J. Simpson. Now, they pointed a finger at O.J. Simpson because he was a popular black man, and they wanted to promote a narrative of him being a black brute who lusted after white women and had an obsession with this white woman to the point where he wanted to take her life. This was the story that was presented by Los Angeles police detectives like Mark Furman and many others And this was the story that the LA prosecutor's office presented as they looked to put charges on O.J. Simpson without ever looking at the whole situation as I see it from an objective perspective. Because if you take a look critically at the case of O.J. Simpson, it basically was one that the Los Angeles prosecutor's office was looking to try to salvage their tarnished reputation with the public as related to cases like the murder of black people like Latasha Harlins and people who were brutalized by the police like Rodney King, as related to the 1992 LA riots that basically wound up tearing up Los Angeles when a series of rogue police officers were acquitted for the beating of Rodney King. And with the LA prosecutor's office reputation tarnished and many black people not trusting the LAPD or the prosecutor's office to mete out justice, the LA prosecutor's office was desperate for a win to win back the trust of people in California. And the case of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman's murder was one that was sensationalized enough to create press, and that's what Marcia Clark, the LA prosecutor, wanted to do. She wanted to create press that would be able to rebuild their reputation, and possibly getting a conviction against a major celebrity like O.J. Simpson. She thought that this would be the thing to elevate her career, one, and to salvage the reputation of the LA prosecutor's office. However, this plan was one that really polarized a lot of people, and as charges were made against O.J. Simpson for the murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, many people were polarized as related to race, and they saw this whole case as an attempt to try to railroad a black man through the criminal justice system without doing a proper investigation. And this was after these charges were made. This is where O.J. Simpson went on an infamous slow speed chase that is considered to be an iconic moment of the 90s. And after making that run with his friend Al Cowlings, he was arrested and charged with the murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. And after this happened in the summer of 1994, we got what was called the trial of the century. And this trial of the century was a sensationalized trial where the mainstream media had basically tried O.J. Simpson in the court of public opinion. However, as the facts of the case came out, there was evidence that showed that O.J. Simpson, who was considered the LAPD's prime suspect, was not the murderer. And this all culminated in a climax where the LA prosecutor had O.J. Simpson put on the infamous bloody gloves that were supposedly left at the crime scene. And as O.J. Simpson put on these gloves while wearing rubber gloves that constricted his allegedly swollen hands, what happened was the gloves did not fit. And as a result of the gloves not fitting and the whole case being rushed, what happened was O.J. Simpson wound up being acquitted of this crime, of the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. And after being acquitted of these crimes, O.J. Simpson was released from the LA from custody of the LA prosecutor's office, and this basically led to America being polarized. And as America got polarized as related to this verdict, you had black people celebrating his acquittal, and you had white people upset at the jury, which was picked, designed to convict O.J. Simpson because it was a majority of black women, and the prosecutor knew that black women did not like black men who went out here and pursued interracial relationships. So the jury basically wound up acquitting O.J. based on the evidence, which wasn't very strong because the gloves and the socks, which basically had chemicals on them that made it questionable as related to saying that he was there. Not to mention, O.J. Simpson was a 47-year-old man who allegedly had arthritis in his hands, and there was no way that he could possibly wind up taking the lives of two people who were younger than he was, and one like Ron Goldman, who was allegedly a martial artist. I mean, the whole narrative came across as really racist to many black people who saw it as them looking to make O.J. Simpson into a super brute and make it look like this middle-aged man who had already had 4 children and arthritis would be capable of murdering 2 people. Again, the black brute narrative, making it like he was some super strong black man. And this basically led to people looking at the whole case of OJ from the black community as another effort to railroad a black man and deny black people justice, like they did in the case of Rodney King and Latasha Harlins. This whole case basically was one that people thought was about taking a shot at the prosecutor's office for taking a shot at black people and not giving them justice and looking to mete out justice. However, the evidence in the case did not match what was presented as related to the story of O.J. Simpson being obsessed, because according to reports, O.J. Simpson was looking to pursue a Playboy model, Tracy Adele, who had recently posed in Playboy that year, and was looking to try to get a date with her, which basically shatters the whole narrative of him being obsessed. And there were reports of a white female witness who saw a different story of 4 men. This was what was speculated as related to things, and these were the things that were presented as related to the case of O.J. Simpson. But O.J. Simpson was acquitted, but sadly he was still on the road to becoming a man in crisis. And he was on the road to becoming a man in crisis because he was always looking to gain white acceptance and white approval. This was something that he was raised to believe in because his parents were were progressives who basically wanted to be a part of white society. His mother wanted to be a part of white society. His father wanted to be a part of the alphabet community. And with his father being out of his life because his father passed away in 1986 from AIDS, I mean, he didn't really have that guidance to be able to help him navigate a course to maintain his success. And as he continued on with his life after the acquittal, instead of him looking to go back to the black community that supported him all throughout this whole situation, he continued to show his self-loathing and self-hatred towards black people and looked to continue to seek white validation and approval. And as he looked to seek white validation and approval, O.J. Simpson continued to pursue relationships with white women and continued to put himself at risk. And this is where black people started to pull away from O.J. Simpson as this man in crisis continued on. And as this man in crisis continued on, the white supremacists were completely butthurt about actually losing for the first time, and with them butthurt about losing for the first time as related to the rigged game that they play with black men, what many of the white supremacists did was look for a way to get a Pyrrhic victory against O.J. Simpson, and that's when the Browns and the Goldmans decided to file a civil lawsuit. And in 1997, after getting this civil lawsuit, they got a judgment of $33.8 million. And after they got that judgment of $33.8 million, they looked to try to destroy memorabilia that belonged to O.J. Simpson, having all sorts of events where they would look to destroy things like his Heisman Trophy and other items, destroying his jerseys and things that were memorabilia that had value. And as they did this, they basically showed how they were dysfunctional overall because, again, in America, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And as they went on, O.J. Simpson wanted to continue trying to seek their validation and approval. He continued to look to seek white validation and approval, hoping to try to gain their acceptance, trying to gain the approval of white people. And even though he was trying to gain their acceptance, they continued to express their contempt for him. And sadly, O.J. Simpson continued to be a man in crisis because of his low self-esteem and low self-worth, because he only felt he had worth and value if white people validated him. And he felt so guilty about getting acquitted. What was really sad was he decided to write a book called If I Did It. And as he wrote this book called If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer, again confessing to a crime that he had already been acquitted for, it really showed how O.J. Simpson really had extremely low self-esteem and low self-worth because he was looking to get back into white social circles, but he was not going to be able to get into those white social circles because these white supremacists were basically enraged, and they were enraged because somebody, for the first time, actually beat them at their own game. And because somebody beat them at their own game, they were so enraged that once this book was about to be released, and O.J. Simpson needed this advance money to, again, just keep his home. What happened was he did get the money to keep his home, but the Goldmans and the Browns basically pushed so hard, and many people who were racist pushed hard and got this book to keep from not being sold, and actually got the publisher of Regan Books, a subsidiary of HarperCollins, Judith Regan, fired for going out and greenlighting this book. And that just showed how deep the hatred was for O.J. Simpson. But what was really sad about him was he continued to seek white validation and continued to seek it to the point where he was looking to not only sacrifice as related to his dignity and self-respect, but was also looking to put his own freedom at risk. I mean, freedom that his dream team of lawyers like Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, and Robert Kardashian went out here and fought for by, in 2007, going to try to get his memorabilia back from someone in Las Vegas, and basically wound up putting himself in a situation where he wound up being arrested once more and was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. Now, after being sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, what was sad was even though O.J. was a model prisoner and got paroled, was he still was seeking white validation, still was seeking white females to have relationships with. This was the saddest part about O.J. Simpson that made him a man in crisis. After going through all of this adversity, he really wasn't looking to learn or grow from his situation, and like many beta males, what he was looking to do was he was looking to keep doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. Now, that's the textbook definition of insanity, but O.J. Simpson continued to go on seeking white validation and approval, and continued to go out and seek out this validation and approval even in the later years of his life, and was so desperate to the point where he even wanted to go on social media like Twitter. And as he went on Twitter, he was basically calling out things to get people's attention, not understanding how he was alienating people. And it was really sad about watching O.J. Simpson. It was sad that he just kept on going, seeking white validation and approval. Again, this man basically was on the road to becoming a man, was on the road to becoming a man in crisis, and wound up through serious crises. And as he went through these serious crises, sadly, just did not change at all. But this is what par for the course for many black male baby boomers who seek white people as idols to look up to and want to transcend race and seek white acceptance. That's the sad part about O.J. Simpson, was that he, even though he went through all of this, he sadly did not seek to learn anything or change, and was still out here playing golf, still looking for approval of white people in his older age, and even in the face of being diagnosed with cancer in 2023, and he expressed confidence that he would beat it. I mean, a couple of weeks later in February, it said that he was undergoing treatment for prostate cancer, and even though he was going through all of this, sadly, just 2 weeks later, I heard about what happened to O.J. Simpson, and he sadly wound up passing away just recently at the age of 76 years old. And sadly, as he passed away, he wasn't a man that was able to actualize his potential as a man. No, he wound up dying a man in crisis, and he died a man in crisis because he never learned how to lead himself as a man or have pride as a black man in being black. Now, if you want to learn what leads to many males like this winding up on a road to dysfunction, where even though they have success, they wind up becoming failures in life, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and you can also find it at big box retailers like Walmart and Target. Now, some of my viewers wanted this video, and I'm hoping that they'll drop a donation to the Cash App. But if you will want to see me do another video about historical men in crisis, you can send a donation to the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box for a minimum of $15, because my time is money, and to make these videos I need money in order to be able to continue paying for things like electricity and the internet. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many Black women can't find a husband and why 70% of Black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.